a fan of the Monday Movie Club. We found out that we do have some lurkies. What do you call them?
Facebook lurkers. Hello,
Lurkers.
Burkhart cousins and Eric.
They sometimes watch our videos, but they don't comment or give us a thumbs up. It's rude. Just rude. All right. So this week, Joel made us watch two movies. Well, not really. He made us watch two versions of the same movie, Superman 2. I'm Frank Gaffney. With us, as always, is Joel, which is my favorite version of your name. Goldfoot and Cringer. Annie King, who's in the dining room.
Atlanta.
You're in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Whose house is that in Atlanta?
Yes, I'm visiting my friends, the Ronas.
Oh, nice.
Are they on the Real Housewives of Atlanta?
No.
There you go.
No?
The house looks lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
Yeah,
nice.
I actually, Kenny blows glass, and maybe later I'll show you some of his glass work.
Okay.
Wow.
Cool.
That was a task on The Amazing Race this year.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not easy.
I've done it twice. Yeah, it's hard.
Penny blows, news at 11. And Mark Wiltis Gardner. Oh, Mark Kent. Very funny.
Yes.
Put on your glasses. We can tell who you are.
I almost forgot.
There
How
you
about
go.
now?
Oh, now I know who I am. No idea. Okay. Do we need to discuss the plot? Really? No. Suffice it to say, this really is part two. It really is part two. So many threads of the first film come back here, taken up here. And the interesting bit, and why Joel made us watch both versions, is that Richard Donner, who had directed part one, was also filming scenes for part two at the same time. And I guess the Salkins were planning to have one 4-hour epic, but release it in two parts. And during the filming of part one, tensions rose between Donner and the Salkins, who were the producers. Are they brothers, father and son?
Father and son. Alexander was the father. Ilya is the son.
Hold on. I have a question on that though. What about DC Comics? Don't they own DC Superman? Who are the Salkins?
We could do an entire
Okay.
thing on who owned what when. Just suffice it to say, at the time the movie was made, the Salkins had the movie rights.
Thank you.
Yep.
and they were lovers. Anyway, the decision was made to stop simultaneously filming the sequel, of which 75% had already been completed, and just finished the first film. And then following the release of part one in 1978, which we watched last year, right? Richard Donner was fired as director and replaced by Richard Lester. And to be officially credited as the director, Lester had to reshoot most of the film himself. And that means, like, what percentage does he have to have done?
I think it's over 50%.
Yeah.
Isn't it like 80? Didn't the Academy make it 80?
I don't remember the specifics because there's a lot.
So,
there's a lot of Lester in the Donner cut, and there's a lot of Donner in the Lester cut. So
that's that commercial, right? You got people. Okay, and Richard Lester had worked previously with the Salkins for Three Musketeers and the sequel, The Four Musketeers, and both were international hits. So they asked him to step up. And but then in 2006, Richard Donner, not one to ever let anything go, I appreciate that, edited his version of part two. So we watched the Richard Lester version on Max, and we rented the Donner version. And now, here are 10 reasons why the Donner version is better.
Number
1.
10.
10? Oh, you want a countdown?
10. 10. We have to have a countdown.
Lex Luthor has more screen time. Gene Hackman is so entertaining every second he's on screen, and his clever one-liners and his unforgettable hammy performance. I'm glad there's more of it in the Donner version. And he actually didn't he quit, Joel?
Well, it's not they quit. They Brando and Hackman had definitive start and end dates for shooting. So when you know, all their scenes were front loaded. They had to have everything done with Brando and Hackman, and that also meant Ned Beatty and Valerie Perrine. All of that had to be done up front. So Hackman was done shooting. So
there are scenes in the Lester version where you could see it's a body double trying to be Gene Hackman.
yes,
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, especially in the Fortress of Solitude.
yes. Well, because they had to cover the fact in the Lester version that when the villains land and they drop off Luther and Lois, in the Donner version, they all land together at the same time in the same place. In the Lester version, they kind of had him in a different area coming in. So they had a body double who's kind of like sliding around and falling off cliffs and shit. So,
yeah. Okay, number 2, Zod and his henchmen have a better escape from the Phantom Zone. In Lester's cut, the missile originates as part of the hydrogen bomb during the hostage situation in Paris. But in Donna's version, they did it better by showing it as a side effect of the first movie.
Which doesn't work at the end of the movie. I'll get to that later.
Yeah. And Donna's Superman 2 gives legitimate consequences for the event, even if Superman is unaware of them, which works better. Number 3, he got to put Marlon Brando back. Thank goodness. Because his scenes were all rewritten, but wasn't he holding out for more money to be included in the next movie?
yeah. I mean, yes, he had finished all of his scenes, but, you know, wanted more money.
Yeah. And
so they were
they gave all of his scenes to Jor-El's scenes to his wife, Lara L.
Yeah. Yes.
Donna was able to restore Brando's scenes, and again, providing more depth to Superman's choices. Number 4, I can't go backwards. I did it forwards. What would 4 be? 7.
So,
Les's version has Mama Lara L telling Kal-El that he must be human for Lois. But Donna's version allows it to be more emotional when Jor-El uses the last of his energy to restore his son's powers. Again, works much better. Number 5. Number 5 should be number 5, right?
Yeah.
Superman has
No.
powers. No?
6. Yeah.
Number 7.
yeah, we're Star Wars counting.
Wait. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, now. 6. Superman has powers that are part of the icon of the character. Tearing off his chest emblem is not one of them. And Donna's kiss is a much better solution, but at least it doesn't give Superman weird powers. Which is weird. And it actually makes him more likable. And 5, Lois confirming Superman's identity. Now, at the end of part 1, Lois brushes off the idea that Clark Kent is Superman, but Les's version ignores the whole thing until we get to Niagara Falls. And in the Donna version, it's right up front. And she does the whole sketch and everything. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. Okay, number 4. Christopher Reeve's performance is so much better in Donna's version. Donna really gives him so many more really nice moments and allows him to shine. Number 3, Non is even a better character in Donna's version. He's got more to do, and you kind of understand why he's a lunatic. 2, John Williams score. Enough said. Ken Thorne did the music for part 2. I'm sorry, Mr. Thorne. You, sir, are no John Williams. And the number 1 reason, here's the thing about Richard Lester, he tends towards slapstick. And he didn't have the same reverence for Superman as a character as Richard Donner did. Consequently,
I will say the guy on the telephone booth still talking on the phone while he's getting blown away by the bad guys was not in the Donna version, and I appreciated that part. That's a little bit too cheesy. Yeah.
So many stupid moments. Yeah. Consequently, the number 1 reason why the Donna version is better, the better version of Superman Part 2. Donna got rid of a lot of Lester's stupid slapstick. The Lester movie for me was 2.5 stars. And I wondered why, because I loved the first movie, 4-star movie. I love it. I saw it so many times, and I never really watched Superman 2 that much. Maybe twice, maybe 3 times. And now I see why. And so Donna's version is a 3.5 star follow-up. I feel
Frank,
that.
what about part 3 and 4, Superman?
Are we watching those next week?
No, I'd rather not. Well, 3, maybe 3, maybe 3. Yeah.
All right, but so here's the thing: it's like there's still a lot missing. Obviously, Richard Donner couldn't go back and film things that 25% he didn't get to film, but it's so much better. Okay, now Joel,
Yes.
explain to us why Donner repeats the world spinning bit from part 1 in his part 2, and really shouldn't he go back and edit part 1?
Well, yes, theoretically, that's what they should have done instead, but they couldn't for the same reasons. He couldn't go back and fix things from 25 years ago that don't exist. The ending for part 1 would have had to be completely taken apart and re-put back together to not have that repeat going on.
Right. So, but what was supposed to happen at the end of part 1?
Well, you don't have Lois Lane dying. You don't have,
Right.
you know, the basically the destruction that's caused. The movie would have ended with Superman flipping that second missile into space. It would have
releasing
opened up, releasing the Phantom Zone villains. Yes, we're free, and then it would have been coming next year, Superman 2.
Right.
Everyone would go crazy.
Easily done.
Yes and no, except you'd have to deal with the fact that, you know, Lois has fallen into a crevice with her car and been crushed to death, and the earthquakes and stuff. So they had to figure out a way to fix that. And they decided, hey, since we now have to push and finish the first film to get it done in time for its release, and we're stopping on 2, we have this great idea. We'll use that as the big set piece at the end, and we'll come up with something else when we get there. Nobody thought that Donner and it's not just Richard Donner that was let go. I mean, when Donner left, Tom Mankiewicz went with him, and Tom Mankiewicz was Donner's right-hand man. He was, you know, he was essentially the final screenwriter on the movie, but the WGA wouldn't let him get a credit for that. So that's why he's credited as the creative consultant on both films. But, you know, Tom Mankiewicz was on set rewriting the script constantly. So they were like, we'll come back. We'll figure out something else for the end of part 2. And obviously Donner didn't come back, and then Mankiewicz didn't come back. And Mankiewicz was asked, you know, by Terry Semel at Warner Brothers to come in and just help out. And he's like, I can't do that. You know, he was very
loyal. That would be betraying his friend, of course.
So they were never able to come up with whatever that other thing was. So in order to put the Donner cut together, they had to go with a second repeat of turning back.
Yeah. So but I'm saying I think they could have just moved the whole end of 1 to the end of 2. Just move the whole thing there. All right.
It's a little complicated. Anyway.
Joel, your thoughts?
My thoughts. I've seen the Donner, the Lester version of Superman 2 at this point more than I've seen the Donner version. It's, you know,
every time you say the Donner version, I think of cannibals.
Yeah, I know. It's I'll say the Dick Donner version. Does that help?
No. Cannibals
no. I think it's, you know, in a day and age where the concept of a director's cut is thrown around like cheese whiz on a steak sandwich at this point, it becomes irrelevant. You've got Zack Snyder with his new Star Wars clone on Netflix that just dropped, and it's, oh yeah, we've got an R-rated director's cut coming out in a couple of months. What the fuck's the point? You have creative control. Netflix is giving you creative control. Richard Donner had all of his creative control taken away from him. And the fact that there was enough interest, and honestly, it wasn't Donner that, you said it was, that Donner, came to do this. He was reluctant for a long time when, it started with a guy by the name of Michael Taw, who's an editor. And he found all the Donner footage in a vault in Europe. and he knew that the fans wanted to see as much as they possibly could of what Donner's Superman would be, and he started doing it. And then he went to Donner and said, "Hey, this is what I've got." And Donner was still like, I'm not sure about this. And they had to jump through a lot of hoops to get it done. One of the reasons it got done when it got done is because Bryan Singer wanted to use Brando footage for Superman Returns. So they had to go to Brando's estate to negotiate that. And at that point, Warner's was like, "Yeah, sure, we'll give Brando's estate whatever the heck they want." But once they did that, it opened up the door to actually complete, as much as they could, the Donner cut. And Michael Daub brought in Donner to look at things, but it's still not Donner's picture. At the end of the day, because there's still things that are missing. There's still They had to use Lester footage to cover gaps in the plot. That would have been created by things that they just never shot, and that's why
why wasn't Brando in the Lester version though? Like, why did they put the mother in there instead of him?
Brando. I'm a little fuzzy on the details. It sounds like because Brando got paid a shit ton of money,
yeah,
and filmed all his scenes and left. It sounds like he wanted more money to appear in the sequel for whatever reason, even though they had already paid him. So they were like, "We're not paying you more money. We've got other issues to deal with." And Ilya Salkind came up with the idea of, "Hey, he's got a mother too. She could be imparting knowledge." And it's interesting because I actually watched both the extended cut of Superman 1 with the Richard Donner, Tom Mankiewicz commentary, and then I watched the Donner cut, and it's the two of them again talking over the film. And but I had also watched the Lester cut of 2 with Ilya Salkind and Pierre Spengler, the other producer, talking about the movie. And the reasoning that Salkind had for the mother is just kind of offhand, and to him it makes sense. Donner explains exactly why it had to be Brando. It didn't make sense, even to the point where when he's talking about the scene in the first movie when they're launching Kal-El into space, Jor-El is saying, "I give you this and I give you that and I give you this other thing." And Susanna York said to Dick Donner, "What the hell am I doing here? What am I giving him? I'm giving him literally Dick." And he's like, "Yeah, it's a father-son thing." And that pays off much better.
Yeah, of course.
With the floating head in part 2, yes.
Yeah. So, so that's, yeah. What was the question?
Yeah, well, you're supposed to be giving your review comparing the two versions.
Yes. I grew up with, obviously, we all grew up with the Lester version. And yes, the Lester version has a lot more slapstick in it. And there are things that don't make sense and there are things that don't work. I have a nostalgia for it. It's not a bad film per se, based on that. But it is a lesser film based on, it's a lesser Lester film.
A Lester film.
I'm a big fan of the 3 and 4 Musketeers. To me, those are the best versions of that story that have been put on film. They are fun. They are entertaining. They have an amazing cast. It's also the reason why producers can no longer say, "Hey, we're making a movie," and then shoot so much footage they decide, "Hey, we're making 2 movies, but we're not paying you for the second movie." So, everybody in Superman knew they were making 2 movies up front, but they were making them simultaneously, essentially. So, the Lester version, it's fun, it's goofy, it betrays a few things about Superman here and there, and there's, as I said, there are things that just don't work, but it's entertaining to me. The Donner version, I want to love more than I do because I want there to be more to it that doesn't exist. And it doesn't bother me that, and I've seen it less times, obviously, because it's a more recent cut of the film. It doesn't bother me that Superman repeats flying around the Earth to reverse time again. We already know he can do it. So, they don't belabor it this time. We get very short bits, and, they've used some special effects to kind of fix some other things, and they don't. It's not as long as it was. You don't get Brando, with the whole, "You're forbidden to interfere in human history" and all that stuff. It's just, quick and to the point, and we're out and we're done and we move on. It is a better film. I'm gonna say, that it's the Donner version is a 3.5-star film easily. If it had been completed the way it was intended, it would probably be a 4-star film like the first film. I think Richard Donner obviously has a love for the character. He understood the character. He respected the character. And not just the character of Superman, every character. Donner, you probably can't see it behind me, but I have 2 comic books behind me that Richard Donner actually wrote back in 2008-ish or so, when, with DC Comics, that took some of his ideas from the Superman films and melded them into the comics. The first time you actually see Ursa and Non as characters in the comic books. They didn't exist before that in the comic books. And General Zod is now based off the look of Terrence Stamp in those stories. Donner had plans. He and Tom Mankiewicz were hoping, the producers, that the first film was a success, that the second film would be a success as well, that they would do, the Superman series would become like the James Bond series, where they'd, alternate, there were plans for Tom Mankiewicz to potentially direct an installment, and none of that happened, unfortunately. So it is what it is. The Lester cut's closer to a 3 for me, and a lot of that's due to the nostalgia factor. So, but it's I think, in regards to the concept of a director's cut, this is a really great example, because they are 2 very different films. They share a lot of plot points and stuff, but they are 2 very different films. So.
Yeah, definitely common elements, but
yeah,
and that's just shows you what a good director can do.
Yes.
Annie, you'd seen the Richard Lester version before, of course.
Yes. And yeah, if that was the only thing I saw, and I didn't know about anything else, then it would have been fine. There were parts that I was like, silly. The Mount Rushmore was like a silly thing for me. Oh yeah, when like they're fighting and they're like, Superman's dead, let's get him. And they're like picking up tennis rackets and stuff to like go fight these 3 super strength people. I was like, that's crazy. And I did mention like the wind blowing scene and the guy talking on the phone, holding on. I was like, oh my God, that's just way too long a scene, as it were. And but yeah, so then, watching the Donner version, it makes a lot more sense. It gives it more feeling, more depth, with Brando doing it and stuff. Let's see. I like how in the Donner version, she shoots Clark and he was like, Clark Kent would have been dead. And she was like, well, not with blanks, and
yeah.
So that was funny. And, like everything Joel said, I think he said a lot of it, and Frank did also. So I would agree. To me, it's 3.5 for the Donner version, and I would go with 3 for the theatrical release, the Lester version. Yeah, again, because I grew up with that. That's what I, seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing was, at the beginning of the Donner version, it says that they had to take footage from here or there or whatever, and they used audition material. So I'm assuming the audition material was Christopher Reeve when he was talking to Lois.
Yeah, that whole scene in the hotel room in Niagara Falls when she shoots him, that's both of their screen tests. Martin Kidder actually read with Christopher Reeve for that, so they had the 2 of them together in shots. But Christopher Reeve alone, his screen test was actually with Jack Palance's daughter Holly. So that's where that came from. But and you can tell it's a younger, skinnier, version because of that. So.
So yeah, like they did such a big thing of like recapping everything in the first, like the opening credit. So I think for the Donner version, he could have just given it a different ending in that whole recap for the first movie.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
They could have, but I think the editor, Michael Thaw, was very hesitant to undo anything that had been done in the first film.
Right,
Because
right.
that it is
You have to
Donner's,
respect what's there.
yeah, it is Donner's cut of the film. I mean, it's not like it is and
Right.
it isn't, because there's the theatrical release, which Donner approved, and then around the time this came out, they created an extended version of part 1 that's 8 minutes longer, that has a couple of extra scenes that Donner was like, all right, the fans love these scenes, we can put those back, they don't bother me, but I don't want this giant 3-hour version that the Salkinds put together for television to have my name
Right.
on it like that. So
Yes, and I did love the revenge part at the diner when he goes back. Clark Kent.
Yes,
Been working
yes,
out. Yeah,
yes.
that was great.
Almost as a post-credit sequence there.
Yeah.
All right, Goldfuck, you had to watch 2 movies. That's homework.
And I watched them back to back.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh. So I have like
She
no
doesn't
memory.
remember anything about them.
No, because it's 8 days since I saw these movies. And you know, all of my notes are always just, I love this or I hated this. It's nothing in depth or anything. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. I'm just cracking up because Luna is trying to get into the room, and I'm just seeing paw come in under.
Oh, let her in.
No, then she'll be on jumping all over me.
Let her in. I thought doing the previously on during the opening titles was great. I really, really liked that. I always loved that Lois Lane found out who Clark was early on. I did think if I were her and Clark, I'm sorry if this doesn't make sense. I'm like talking as I'm watching it. I did think if I were her and Clark did not transform into Superman, to save me when she jumped into the water, she didn't think that. She was like, well, why didn't you save me? If she knows it was him, you know what I'm trying to say?
But he convinced her that it wasn't him.
But she grabbed onto the log, and the log, mysteriously saved her. I don't know. To me, just forget it.
Well, it's the same. It's the same thing as the Donna version, where she mysteriously didn't fall that fast, and then the awning popped out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the speed at which these people fall, like off Niagara Falls, and he is at the hot dog stand. He wouldn't save the kid. That kid would hit the water before he even ran from the hot dog stand, much less gone to get his stupid cape put on. It was ridiculous. I'm like, how slow?
He travels extremely fast.
So many people falling off Niagara Falls.
And the cape is always under the suit.
Well, yeah. And what was with the kid with the heavy British accent in the middle of rural Idaho? There was like that preteen kid. He was talking like this. But I did love that our three. Yes, he was Mark. Our 3 bad guys kept calling it Planet Hoospool.
Just so you're aware, that scene in bumfuck wherever America it was supposed to take place was actually shot in Calgary.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So.
Well, it was supposed to be Idaho.
Yeah.
It's just amazing how every group in movies, like every movie has to have a group of people where somebody is the fucking idiot. And you know how I hate those characters. The only idiot character I've ever liked in history is Joey from Friends. Otis was ridiculous. And then there was Ed Norton and Ralph Cramden as our 2 police officers. And the tall evil guy with the hideous facial hair. He was such a moron who did nothing but, oh my God, did I hate that. Wait, hang on. He just hit a button. So there we go. I love that the 3 bad guys kept, Houston. And I love how on the planet, I'd love to know on what planet in Podunk, Idaho, a guy is going to be on the news and it's going to go out to the entire planet. Everybody It's crazy to me that all of the rules they can make up in comic book land, Superman having to lose his powers in order to shack up with Lois is ridiculous.
I have a comment on that as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and then I wrote, all right already with this windstorm. Thank you for commenting on that.
Yeah.
And then in the Donna version, I wrote, I loved in the opening with her drawing the glasses and the hat on his picture. And then it continuing with her jumping out the window. We see Superman blowing the thing that the villains do later. Because I saw in the first movie, the villains blowing. I didn't know that was any kind of thing that Superman does. Because I know. We had never seen it before. All of a sudden, they're just blowing a windstorm. So I like that we saw him do that first, if that even matters. I did prefer in the first one that we saw Zod and our villains discussing going to the moon as opposed to it just miraculously being there. Then I went back to see that scene, and that I seem to have made that moment up. They never discussed it in both movies, right? They just appeared on the moon.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess in my mind, I thought they should have discussed this. I don't know. It's weird that something appeared on our moon. I'm sorry this is dragging on. I suck. I was going to say the worst part about watching these movies back to back is having to see that unbearable gum-smacking bellhop twice. All of a sudden, they cut his scene out. Donna cut his shit out. Awful. But I did love that Perry White told them to go to Niagara Falls to do the story, as opposed to them just being there and not think, oh my God, did they get married?
I said that too when I was like, I don't remember them, just like they just showed up there. They don't explain anything. So
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And the fresh OJ scene in the Lester movie I liked because that explained why he knew that she wanted orange juice with a hot dog.
Exactly.
And he kept mentioning the orange juice and I wrote something about him getting shot with the blank, but he would have known that. And
Amy, I said the same thing because I had never seen that scene before, and she should be able to tell the difference between a real bullet and a fake. Yeah.
I just want to quickly bring up some real life scenarios here with like Brandon Lee and John Eric Hexum, who both died in being shot with blanks. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. So anyway, I was wondering how much you guys would give this more stars because of the nostalgia factor. I think I saw the second movie, maybe but none of it seemed familiar, so I think I might have really only seen the first one because I didn't really care about Superman at 13, 14. So I'm going with 2.5 stars for Donner, 2 stars for Lester, but they truly are both 4 stars compared to the movie I watched this week. That was a 0-star movie. You ready for it now?
Give it to us.
Superman 3.
Oh,
why did you do that?
Amy, Superman 4 is negative stars then.
I watched that one yesterday. They were both 0 stars. They're both unbearable. Absolutely the worst pieces of shit I have ever seen in my life.
Here's the thing: Superman 3 has to be watched not as a Superman movie, but as a Richard Pryor movie that happens to have Superman in it.
It's also a prequel to Office Space.
Right.
That I've heard too. I've heard that too.
Yeah.
Oh, every just god awful. And I thought the acting in every Superman, you're all talking about the good acting. I think they're all horrible. And every single line in Superman 2 and 3 and all of them, every line is dubbed. So they're horrible. They're all bad movies. And I can't believe the first one 3.5 stars. I looked it up yesterday.
Gene Hackman, I agree with Frank. Gene Hackman, I find him, he's fantastic.
And just because Mark brought up Superman 4 as being negative stars, Superman 4 is a whole other ball game because you're dealing with Warner Brothers and the Salkinds were gone. They had sold the rights off to Canon Films. Canon Films enticed Christopher Reeve with a bigger budget and creative control. At the end of the day, he had creative control over the script and nothing else because they cut that budget way down. The movie looks like shit, but there's a kernel of something in there that could have been good.
Maybe.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, speaking of looks like, my God, the special effects from 1 to 4 are just horrendous. Like,
well, that's because I said,
bring me Industrial Light and Magic, somebody, because they're
Canon Films was not going to pay money to make a Superman
not
movie.
Even 4, I'm talking about even 2. Terrible.
What about him landing it? What about Zod landing in the water and walking on the water without seeing anything at the time? I thought that was a very good practical effect.
I did look underneath. There was nothing. They did a nice job.
Yes.
You also have to realize, Amy, back then, Industrial Light and Magic, the way you think they existed, didn't really exist. These movies were made at the same time as Star Wars.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
They were,
what he did, what Lucas was able to do in comparison to this garbage was amazing. And I made a post last week about What We Do in the Shadows, and Barry Hatrick was like, I'm afraid to watch it because it might be stupid. I'm like, Barry, this is stupid writing. God.
You should watch Industrial Light and Magic then on Disney Plus, because that shows you how they didn't know what they were doing when they were creating Star Wars. They made it up as they went, and it was just miraculous.
Yeah, and the Salkinds tried to get the people that were involved with Star Wars, but they were involved with Star Wars, so they
Right.
got the next best people.
The next
to be
worst
involved.
thing.
Yeah, right.
Screen with like fucking clay and a green screen. I'm sorry, I
Mark.
went into a lot.
All right, I've got pages here, so I'm gonna go. I'm gonna start with the Lester version, or actually the TV version that I would have seen 50
Yes.
times when I was a kid.
Because that
So
is technically a third version of the film that exists.
Yeah,
So.
and did it not have a couple parts from the Donna version, like
Yes.
mashed in?
Yes,
Okay.
We have to remember that the Salkinds, when they had the TV rights. They had sold off all the other rights to Warner Brothers to cover the budget as the budget kept ballooning. So in order to make money back, they were like, we can sell more money the longer it is. We can make, so the Superman became a 2-night event on ABC with a 3-hour version across 2 nights. Superman 2, they did, I think it runs about 2.5 hours, 240 maybe.
Okay.
In total, but yes, there is Donner footage in the TV version of 2.
Okay, so I'm reviewing the third version that we didn't watch. That's the version I
This
grew up
the
with.
one, this the one you taped off a TV and watched it on a VHS the whole time.
With commercials over and over again, just like Star Wars.
Is that,
and all that.
did you just watch that again or no?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even check to see if I still have it somewhere. I still have all my VHS tapes in the den.
Because the disc of the Donner version actually has 8 scenes that were cut that Donner shot that were not in the Donner version for good reason, and a few of them are in that TV cut.
TV version. Okay. Just like Superman 1, like I said, I told you when I watched there was a weird mashup of what I remembered and what I didn't remember. So anyway, just like Rocky and Indiana Jones, I grew up, I like number 2 better than number 1 because for a 10-year-old kid, there's more action, there's less love scenes. And that's what I've always liked action movies. So, and I think this would have been a 4-star movie for 10-year-old Mark. So Amy, I'm not going to give it 4 stars. Don't worry. It's been a while, but I didn't remember some of these scenes, like like Cliff Clavin being in the movie again. I only remembered him in the first one, and in the Donna version, he had a few more lines. If I'm correct, he started speaking a few times when they were on the moon and stuff. I loved. I know it's silly, but in this again, this is the Lester version. I loved when Clark walks in at the beginning and just tosses his hat and glances back at his work. I thought that was just a little wink and a nod. I loved it. Was that not the world's most sparkly spaceship on the moon? What was with the gold plate? It was like a kid made that. Miss Tessmacher repeating everything Lex says in the Fortress of Solitude. I had forgotten that a little bit, and that made me crack up. I thought that was hilarious.
Oh, and which was the version where she flushed the toilet? Oh
that was the Donna version, because I'd never seen that. What, that was bad?
So stupid.
Well, that's okay. You would have hated the extension of that scene where she actually says, "I found it." You hear the flush, and then she screams as if something like ate her or something. It's.
But when she says not everything, and he said you should have gone before, that was funny. They should have ended it there. They shouldn't have showed her going to the bathroom. Yeah,
should have ended the movie there.
Ursa being hurt by a snake was as dumb as Superman getting drunk in Superman 4. Superman can't get drunk. 3?
3.
No, isn't that 4?
No, it's 3.
Oh, 3.
With the peanuts?
Yeah, it's 3.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was dumb. Okay, then Amy, I do agree with you. I thought that was the 4th movie, and that's why I thought it was so.
There are reasons for that explain it in my head. So, but that's another something else.
Anyway, I've always loved when Lois finds out in the hotel room. And I'll talk about the Donna version in a second. As a kid who was bullied, the diner scene had a huge impact on me. And I love the second scene, of course, when he gets his revenge. I love the big, again, as a kid, I love the big fight in the city at the end, but it is a bit silly, especially as I think Annie and Amy mentioned, just the part with them blowing and the guy on the phone, again, as a 10-year-old, that worked. The slapstick worked. I thought that was the best thing. It was correct. I would crack up, but watching it now at 48, I was like, okay, that's really dumb, and just it went on way too long. Superman going on. Okay, yeah, this part. And Amy, you mentioned this. Superman goes on one date with Lois, finally gets laid, and then goes, "All right, I'm giving up all my powers." Come on, if you think about that, I know they'd known each other for a few years or however long, but that was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh, and just in general, oh shit, I dropped my notes. Hold on.
Thanks, Superman.
Hey!
And it wasn't Dean Cain.
All right.
Just, I think we mentioned this for Superman 1. Christopher Reeve going from Clark to Superman. I don't care if you don't like the movie. I don't care if you think it's dumb. I love it. And this is why we've all discussed it on Facebook. I mean, Christopher Reeve is the only Superman to me. Okay, going to Donner. I love the dedication to Christopher Reeve in the beginning. I preferred the Niagara Falls jump over the building jump by Lois, but I did enjoy them showing Clark running through the building out. They've never showed him running like that. They showed him in slow motion, opening his chest, sure, but they never showed how fast he is because, again, for comic book readers, you know, Superman is he's raced the Flash and just running. So, excuse me, I enjoyed how he got out there and how he saved her without saving her as Superman. But I did enjoy the Niagara Falls scene better. Miss Tessmacher correcting Lex several times in the Donna version. I thought, and just as Frank said, Gene Hackman having more screen time, but her showing him that he's not as smart as he thinks. I really appreciate that in the Donna version. I also preferred Lois finding out in the Lester version that, you know, with the fire as opposed to her shooting him. I did think that the shooting part, I appreciated her in tricking him. I like that, but it did. I guess it's because it was a screen test. I was like, it looked really bad, so that makes more sense now.
So, Mark, had you seen the Donna version before this?
No, never.
Oh.
Although technically, as Joel and I were talking before, I've seen a few parts of it, I guess, in the TV version.
Right.
So it's kind of weird seeing part 1 and part 2 because neither of them were the movie that I really remembered. The last thing I'll say is that overall, I'm going in a different direction than you guys. For me, there was just too many things missing in this version that theater cut had that made some parts not make sense. Like the second diner scene should never have happened because the guy never beat up Superman because he went through time, and not for nothing, he went through time so that the trio was still trapped in the mirror, right? Which means what happened to the bomb?
Yeah.
They didn't show that, and if so, did the bomb still explode? And if it did, if all that happened, he never would have given away his powers. He never would have gotten beat up by that guy. So
Oh my God,
if that's what you're doing,
That's such a good
so
point.
they could have
Yeah.
made that scene work. But when the diner owner says, "Wait, I just fixed this joint up," that would make no sense because
Right.
they never had that fight. So that's why I'm going with 3.5 stars for the TV version, and 3.25 stars for the Donna version, purely because there's some nostalgia here, and it's not my movie.
I didn't even think of that.
That's brilliant.
Natasha brought
Yes,
it up,
there's
but I looked at her like, you're not supposed to ask that question.
Yes, and there was a lot that when Danny and I watched it, it's like, well, if none of that ever happened,
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
his home was never destroyed, you know,
Yes.
like there's so much. that-
But I will say I did appreciate the very ending because the one thing I do hate about the Lester version is I hate the Superman kiss at the end. It makes no sense. It's another weird power that just he makes her forget by a big kiss. It's dumb. Even as a kid, I was like, eh. So I did appreciate the reasoning behind going back in time so that she never found out. So that I'll give him.
Yeah.
Well, here's the other thing that with the Superman kiss is it's not Superman kissing her, it's Clark. He is dressed as Clark when he does that in the Lester version.
But he's still
But
Superman.
he has the
No,
power.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But as Tom Mankiewicz points out, and it's a very interesting concept, is that Lois should never kiss Clark. She should only be kissing Superman. And so that to him, that makes the whole thing even dumber in the Lester version because it's not true to the characters.
Yeah.
You know.
But she knows at that point that
I
they're
know
the same, one and the
I
same.
know she knows, but when it's over, she doesn't.
So as she's coming out of it, she should have been
Yeah.
like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But
She
how
did-
come
but
she,
she didn't remember kissing him.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
when she loses her memory every time, how come she doesn't go, wow, he looks a lot like Superman? She completely forgets to go back to thinking
Yeah.
that.
Right. But in the Donner version, she actually says, there's something I think I'm supposed to know, and I don't. I can't remember what it is, you know.
Yeah, but I did appreciate in the Lester version her just saying, "What's going on in the world?" Like it's silly. Yeah, but
Yeah.
either way, both versions worked.
All right, the Richard Lester version of Superman 2 is streaming on Max. The Donner cut is on iTunes for $3.99 or Prime for $5.69. Joe, did it not get a theatrical release?
Not a real one. I think it screened in a couple of theaters just for shits and giggles when it came out.
Or you can get it from your library, of course. Next week, Annie, I'm assuming, wants to give our tear ducts a workout for The Dog's Purpose from 2017. Geez, that's like yesterday, 2017. That's probably like one of our newest movies. It's on Freevee with commercials. Normally, I don't recommend watching a movie with commercials, but I don't think this one will mind. Or it's on Prime for $3.99. I borrowed it from the library, kids. Is that it for us? All right.
Yeah.
I'm Frank Gaffney. Go watch a movie.
And also with you.